This Week with Bob Mueller on News 2.
This week.
And the frustrating part is only for the Senate to say there's nothing that we can do.
A surprising claim from the House Speaker how inaction by the legislature may have cost a Belmont student her life. More in our This Week cover story.
And so when something like this happens, it affects us all.
Remembering 5 Fort Campbell soldiers killed in a helicopter crash during a training mission.
We are proud to be Jewish.
Thousands gather at the National Mall in Washington to show support for Israel as anti-Semitic incidents rise in the U.S.
He said the boss is not going to leave under any circumstances. We are just going to stay in power.
Leaked interview excerpts shed light on conversations about former President Trump's alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election.
It's not so much about the money, it's about I'm all about quality of education.
Tennessee Republican lawmakers begin hearings to determine the feasibility of rejecting billions in federal education money and expanding the school voucher program from 3 to 95 counties. Hello again and welcome to another edition of This Week. Thousands gather on the National Mall in D.C. to show support for Israel as pro-Palestinian protests erupt across the country. Leaked interviews provide a glimpse into former President Trump's actions to overturn the 2020 election, while Tennessee Republican lawmakers examine rejecting federal education dollars while possibly expanding the school voucher program statewide. But we begin with a wild week in Washington as tempers flare and lawmakers nearly come to blows. It was a chaotic week in Washington with shoving matches, elbowing, a challenge to a cage match. Tennessee Republican Congressman Tim Burchett claimed former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy elbowed him in the back. Burchett is one of 8 Republicans to vote to remove McCarthy as Speaker.
I was doing an interview with Claudia from NPR, in which she was asking me a question, and at that time I got elbowed in the back, and it kind of caught me off guard because it was a clean shot to the kidneys, and I turned back, and there was Kevin, and I for a minute I was kind of, what the heck just happened? And then I chased after him, of course.
Okay, so then just explain. So you chased him? What do you mean you chased him?
I just ran after him. I was like, what the heck? Why'd you do that? Because it was, like I said, if you've ever been hit in the kidneys, it's a little different. You don't have to hit very hard to cause a little bit of pain, a lot of pain, and so he just, as he always does, he just denies it or blames somebody else or something, and it was just a little heated, but I just backed off because I saw no reason. I wasn't gaining anything from it, and then everybody saw it, so it didn't really matter.
In the Senate, a hearing nearly came to blows and a challenge for a cage match between Senator Markwayne Mullin and Teamsters President Sean O'Brien, forcing Senator Bernie Sanders to yell for them to stop.
Quit the tough guy act in these Senate hearings. You know where to find me. Any place, anytime, cowboy. Sir, this is a time, this is a place. If you want to run your mouth, we can be 2 consenting adults. We can finish it here.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect.
You want to do it now?
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on.
Big guy.
Oh, stop it.
Is that your solution every problem?
No, sit down. Sit down. Okay. You're a United States Senator. Sit down.
Active.
Oh, okay.
Sit down, please.
All right.
Can I respond? Mr.
Hold it. If we can, no, I have the mic. I'm sorry.
This is
hold
what
it.
he said.
You'll have your time.
Okay.
Can I respond?
Oh, no, you can't. This is a hearing. And God knows the American people have enough contempt for Congress. Let's not make it worse.
I don't like thugs and bullies.
I don't like you, because you just described yourself.
Hold it.
When asked about the unrest among members, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said he was not familiar with what happened.
We're calling another member a smurf in a hearing.
Difficult to control the behavior of everybody who's in the building. I don't view that as my responsibility. That's something that the Capitol Police have to deal with.
While the halls of Congress turned into a schoolyard, outside, thousands gathered to support Israel in its war against Hamas terrorists.
Moments of joy and also sadness at the March for Israel Tuesday on the National Mall. Tens of thousands of people gathered from all over the nation to show support for Israel, oppose anti-Semitism, and advocate to release the hostages held by Hamas. With security and safety top of mind, the Department of Homeland Security designated the event as Level 1 security event, the highest risk assessment.
We will not be afraid. We are proud to be Jewish, and we will stand up against intolerance.
With the Capitol in the background, lawmakers also in attendance as they work on passing emergency aid for Israel's defense systems.
We are here united, Democrat and Republican, House and Senate, to say we stand with Israel.
There are few issues in Washington that could so easily bring together leaders of both parties in both chambers. But the survival of the state of Israel and her people unites us together.
As the Biden administration works to secure the release of a number of American hostages, a relative of 3-year-old Abigail Adan spoke with ABC News. The toddler, an American Israeli citizen, was kidnapped after her parents were murdered on their kibbutz on October 7th. She is believed to be held in Gaza by Hamas.
Abigail is a spunky little girl. I want Abigail to know that her brother, her sister, her aunts and uncles, and her grandparents are waiting for her at home. We are waiting for her. We love her very, very, very much, and we are doing everything we can to bring her home.
It was terrifying.
Maureen and Jeff Klein were in Israel on October 7th when the country was attacked by Hamas.
And we went outside and we could see that the Iron Dome had intercepted a missile basically right over our house.
They were visiting their daughter and grandchildren and could hear the air raid sirens.
When they started to go off, we really didn't know what was going on. We certainly didn't imagine what, was taking place.
Tuesday, the Kleins joined tens of thousands of people gathered on the National Mall in a forceful show of support for Israel.
What is happening in Israel is just an atrocity.
Supporters here at the march tell me they want lawmakers to do more to protect Jewish communities and stop anti-Semitism happening on college campuses.
This is a free country where everyone can say what they want, but no one really has the right to threaten or endanger each other.
Mark Bratzlovsky traveled from New York to call for common ground.
I don't see how there really is much to disagree with because we're really just fighting for peace, and I think everyone wants that.
He wants lawmakers to provide support to Israel.
Israel is one of the only countries in the Middle East that's really developed that has rights for all people.
A bipartisan group of lawmakers attended the event and say they are working together to send aid. Reporting in Washington, Rashad Hudson.
We don't care and we're not going to leave. Confidential interview excerpts shed light on conversations about former President Trump's alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election. ABC's Melissa Adan shares the exclusive new details.
ABC News exclusively obtaining portions of confidential videotaped interviews between the Fulton County District Attorney's Office and two attorneys, Sidney Powell and Jenna Ellis, who were charged with aiding Donald Trump's alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election.
All his instincts told him he had been defrauded.
Powell and Ellis, who were indicted alongside Trump and 16 others, cut plea deals on reduced charges in exchange for their cooperation with prosecutors in Georgia's investigation to the former president. ABC News obtaining these excerpts of their confidential interviews where Ellis tells prosecutors she was personally informed by Trump advisor Dan Scavino that Trump had no plans to leave the White House despite Biden winning the 2020 election.
And he said to me in a kind of excited tone, well, we don't care and we're not going to leave. He said, well, the boss, meaning President Trump, he said the boss is not going to leave under any circumstances. We are just going to stay in power. And I said to him, well, it doesn't quite work that way, you realize. And he said, we don't care.
I think it's helpful to the state when you look at the evidence because you've got somebody saying that he doesn't care whether he won the election or not, he's staying. But I think that there's going to be some challenges to that by some of the defense attorneys in the case.
Scavino did not respond to requests for comment, and an attorney for Trump called the purported conversation meaningless since Trump did ultimately leave. Powell also told prosecutors Trump was determined to stay in power despite his aides repeatedly telling him he lost.
What was President Trump's reaction when, I guess, this cadre of advisors would say you lost?
It was like, well, they would say that and then they'd walk out and he'd go, see, this is what I deal with all the time.
Trump has pleaded not guilty and denied wrongdoing. Ellis and Powell are 2 of 4 defendants in the case who have pleaded guilty, agreeing to testify. Melissa Adon, ABC News, Los Angeles.
Now to our This Week cover story. The State House Speaker believes a law he wanted to have passed during the August special session may have kept an 18-year-old Belmont student, Jillian Ludwig, alive. Adam Mincer breaks down why Speaker Cameron Sexton says the bill never made it to the governor's desk.
Days after Jillian Ludwig was shot in the head while walking in an Edge Hill park, House Speaker Cameron Sexton was asked this on the Matt Murphy Show.
You're saying if the Senate had been willing to take up some of the legislation the House passed in the special session, that Taylor might have been in jail or incarcerated in a mental health facility.
Correct. Yes, and been through an evaluation.
According to Sexton, he was talking about making changes to House Bill 736, legislation that would change requirements to detain someone for mental health issues, telling News 2, quote, that bill would have been in effect with a new definition and new wording prior to him committing those crimes in September, which would allow the DA to have the ability to ask for another evaluation to involuntarily commit him since he was deemed incompetent back in May. Sexton is referring to the suspected killer in this case, who was most recently arrested on September 21st. In a separate case, he was deemed incompetent to stand trial. Sexton added, I don't believe he would have been bailed out if they were putting him under a mental health evaluation due to a new involuntary commitment law. But he admits the bill never got amended, blaming the Senate.
And so we were working to address that language when we came back the second week of special session. And the frustrating part is only for the Senate to say there's nothing that we can do.
Yet a Nashville defense attorney says even with a change like Sexton is proposing, this isn't how the system works and would require a larger overhaul.
Speaker Sexton, I think, would like us all to believe that mental health, some kind of action on mental health, targeting the people who are coming through the criminal justice system would keep our streets safer, when in reality, it's the fact that we're swimming in a sea of guns.
That attorney also explains a bill like what Sexton is proposing would give the DA's office a lot of power and the ability to commit someone whether they're innocent or not.